Good morning. I'm Kathleen from Campus Visits, and I'd like to start off sharing a scripture that's really meant a lot in my life. It's Matthew 16:26. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? What shall a man give in return for his soul? I came to faith in Jesus at 17 years old. My faith was pure and joyful, but untested. As young people often do, I really wanted to be a somebody in this world. After I finished my business marketing degree, I landed my dream job. I became a shopping center marketing director in Pittsburgh. On a good day, this meant creating marketing plans, billboards, TV, radio campaigns, special events, really creative stuff. On a bad day, it meant firing Santa Claus for coming to work drunk again, and also reprimanding my mother, who was dressed as the Easter Bunny, because she refused, while she was in character, to not talk. She just kept talking to the kids. It's really hard to find good help. So at this time, my Christian boyfriend, whom I had dated for 2 years in college, proposed in literal shining armor from head to toe, and on a live white horse, and with a big ring. I don't remember seeking the Lord on this. It just seemed like the next right thing to do. That's what people in college did. We married and lived in a beautiful home in Mount Lebanon. My plans were working out perfectly. I had the appearance of being a perfect couple with a perfect house and a perfect job. But this is a cautionary tale for those who want to become a somebody in this world, those who want a job to define them, those who want a ring by spring that isn't of the Lord. Because I believed that if I worked hard enough and long enough, I could have anything in this world that I wanted. I worked 60 hours a week in, week out. After years of this, I was always run down, prone to being sick, and really unhappy. One day I watched in horror as the vice president of my company fired at least 50 people in one fell swoop. And when he was done with this daunting task, a virtual corporate bloodbath, people were weeping all around him, and the company then fired him. The dream of the corporate world had officially become a nightmare. And my knight in shining armor wasn't doing all that well either. His armor had rusted after a few years of marriage, and in his humanness, he had fallen into a snare of temptation with a coworker. There's really no easy way to say this. My husband was expecting a child with another woman and needed to divorce me quietly and quickly and get her on his health insurance so they could deliver their child. None of this was part of my grand plan. What seemed like having it all of a sudden felt like I had nothing. I had no status, no title, no marriage, and not enough money to stay where I was. I began to realize that filling my heart with all these things was as empty as it gets. I sought God more as a broken and humbled child now, and he showed up at every single turn to show me just how he could bring redemption for my choices and beauty from ashes. Sometime later, I became a flight attendant, desperate to survive financially. One morning, my crew left New York City at 6 a.m. We just had to go to North Carolina, Miami, and back to Pittsburgh to end a 3-day trip. On the way to Miami, the captain told us that we had to guard the front bathroom at all cost. That sounded pretty ominous, so I asked, what does at all cost mean? And he said that we needed to guard it with our lives. It became quickly apparent that the world was spinning out of control below us. 19 terrorists from the Islamic extremist group Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 commercial aircraft and crashed 2 of them into the North and South Towers at the World Trade Center in New York, and were in the process of crashing a 3rd plane into the Pentagon and aiming the 4th toward the White House. All I knew was that the ground attacks were still going on and we needed to land immediately. Once we did land, I got off the plane and called my family from the jetway to let them know I was safe and had landed in Tampa. But I wasn't in Tampa, I was in Jacksonville because the planes were brought down every single second so quickly. As I got to the hotel room, I watched again and again on the news airplanes crashing into the World Trade Center, and yet I could hear my brain actually saying out loud, "It's okay, you don't have anything to do with airplanes." It's really amazing the lengths our brains will go to protect us from any kind of trauma. I was stuck there for 4 long days, hearing no planes in the air except military planes, which was so eerie. I had a long time to think about the grace of God, giving me and our nation yet another opportunity to seek him. On the flight home, one of the flight attendants said to me, "I used to think I had a really strong faith in God, but this has really shaken my faith." And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I remember saying, "You have to understand that we live in a fallen world where people choose good or evil every day, and innocent people are affected by those choices. That has nothing to do with God, being trustworthy, being faithful. We've rebelled against him and his will since the beginning of time." When I got back to the Pittsburgh airport, I wanted to bend down and kiss the jetway. When I got to the middle of the airport, I looked up at the monitors to see something really shocking that I'd never seen before. All the flights said canceled, 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 canceled. I stood there for a minute, letting that sight sink into my soul. All I could think was, if you ever put your faith in a company, in a retirement plan, or anything but that of the Lord, you're a fool. You're an absolute fool. There is no security in this world without him. The entire 4 days that I was stranded, I never cried once. As I started to drive home, all at once, it was like my brain let go of a small wave of grief that had been hidden from me. I had to pull over as I burst into a heaving, ugly cry, thinking about all the firemen who had died, all the policemen, all the people jumping to their death from the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, the plane that crashed in Shanksville, PA. I could not stop crying. None of these things that happened in my life were a surprise to the Lord. He knew I would need to hit rock bottom before he could do his work in me, before I could realize that there was no fulfillment, joy, or satisfaction in becoming a somebody. There was nothing but a broken heart and all the emptiness the world had to offer. Since that time, he has so patiently showed me who he is, showed me his endless grace and patience. I fell so in love with him and his word that I went back to school at a very late age to get a biblical studies degree. To me, there is nothing more important than Jesus. I've graduated from wanting to be a somebody in this world to embracing being a nobody for Christ. I now have pure joy being able to care with the love of Christ, all those God puts in my path. I get to pour into Geneva students, making them my uplifting coffee, which is coffee, hot chocolate, 3 peppermint puffs, and 2 creamers, if they're having a hard day, and praying with them and for them, speaking God's truth into their lives. There is no better life than one lived in a close relationship with the Lord. And as a side Valentine's note, the Lord must have gotten tired of being my Valentine for 20 years. 20 years after my divorce, he even redeemed my broken marriage. I really believe that God does hold our tears in a bottle and redeems them. He brought this crazy boy named Todd from church camp when I was a kid back into my life. When he was 12 and I was 14, he kissed every single girl at church camp except me. I had self-esteem. We were such good friends that we became chemistry partners in high school, and he even joined me on my mission trips later in life. I've now been married to this annoying camp kid, the love of my life, going on a decade. Honestly, with all the love in my heart, I tell you, and with every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Live for him, and you will never regret it. Thank you.